Hi, Ollie here at the Crafty Whisk. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be swatching out some of my Distress Oxides I've just gotten in. This is my swatching binder which you've seen before. So I'm just taking out my Distress Oxide pages. And I do this probably a little bit overboard. I've got pages in a binder, and I've also got these little 2-inch square little pieces of paper which I have in coin pockets, which I have hanging on a hook behind where I work. I find these invaluable because you can just take them out of the pockets and then you can colour match them to projects that you're working on. And I apologise because my neighbour is mowing their lawn, so you can probably hear the lawnmower on and off in the background. My apologies for that. So I'm just getting myself organised here. I like to also have my sponging foams organised as well, so I can see how well each colour blends. I have some old stamps that I use to actually swatch out my colours, and they can be any stamps that stamp well, so I can see how the stamps are going to, how the inks stamp out. And I have some stickers that I use. I just pick them up from a $2 store. And I just showed you there an ink pad I've already done as to how I like them set up. So with the stamps that I use, I like to have quite a large area of stamp which is solid, so that I can see a lot of the actual colour of the ink being used. Now with Distress inks, they don't form a completely solid image. That's just the way that the Distress inks work, as opposed to a dye ink or a pigment ink. So first I stamp onto my large piece of cardstock, which is 250 GSM, and then I stamp onto my 2-inch square piece of cardstock that I have already labelled, and I label it in what kind of ink it is. So this is a Distress Oxide, and then I label it with the colour that it is, and then I use my foam dome on my tool and I just blend the corner. And then with my sticker I use a smaller little stamp which actually comes from a little stamp set especially designed for ink swatching, which is from Waffle Flower, and I'll put that in the description below. And that will be attached to the side of my Distress Oxide ink pad. And then with my labelling machine I label Oxide and the name of the colour, and I do 2 of those for the actual ink pad, and then I label it, I do 2 more printouts for my sponge holder, which is I just picked them up from Amazon. You can get them from AliExpress. You can also get them from $2 shops as well. And that's how I store all of my little foam, my dome foam, I don't know what you call them, just the foam dome sponge applicators. And I try and have all of my colours in colour, not rainbow order or anything like that, but in colour family. So the yellows and oranges, the pinks, the purples, the greens, the blues, neutrals, and so on. I have a different foam piece for each and every colour, and I store them all, of course, in their own little container. It's a bit of a lengthy process to do this, but it's worthwhile in the end. The stickers I have are just a fraction too big for the stamp pad, so I just cut a little bit off of each one. And it's just a matter of finding which stickers work for you. The name of the actual sticker isn't really relevant because each and every $2 shop is going to have different ones. So wherever you are, whichever $2 shop is near to you, it doesn't really matter. Just chop down whichever stickers they have to suit your needs. If it's what you want to do, I find having the actual colour of the ink helps me on the side of the ink pads, because I can't actually see the top of the lids from where I sit. I can only see the sides of the ink pads. And having the names on the sides of the ink pads helps me tremendously as well. And then having all the names in a binder helps me when I go to purchase more ink pads. It helps me know which ones I already have. And then having them on a binder clip behind where I work in the little coin pockets helps me match up with other coloured papers when I'm working on a project. It helps me to know what colour inks to use in my project. Helps me with my Copic markers or texters or pencils. Helps me to know what colours to use to colour in or to layer my papers, and so on and so forth. It also helps to know when you're doing ink blending which colours go with which colour on the colour wheel. It's very helpful. I'll put a link, or I'll write down in the description below the coin pockets that I use. I'm pretty sure I got them off of Amazon. There are different methods to organising and swatching out your stamp pads. This is the way I found works for me. And also, just a reminder to not store your ink pads in direct sunlight either, because that will reduce the lifespan of the ink in your ink pads. And you don't necessarily have to use the foam applicators either for your blending. I also have blending brushes as well, but I find that with the oxides, the foam applicators work so well with the oxides that I found it very, very practical to have a foam applicator for every single oxide that I do own. And very cheap too. You can buy them off of AliExpress. I think I get like a packet of 50 for, I can't remember the exact price, but I think a pack of 50 is less than $20, which is a lot cheaper than a set of blending brushes. And you only need one or two of the actual wooden tools. And the oxides blend like butter. They are beautiful to blend with. in a future video I'll show you a few of the blending techniques using the oxides and the dye inks as well, and some colour combinations that I've found work really well. And it's a really good idea just to experiment with your colour combinations, and also experiment with different kinds of paper. The paper quality makes a huge difference in the way that different inks will blend. And also the amount of ink that is in your ink pad will make a difference as to how well your ink will blend. And I always label my ink pads on two sides, because you can always bet your bottom dollar that I'll put them in on the side that isn't labelled if I only label one side. So with two sides, I have a better chance of being able to see the side that's labelled. We have a special appearance here from Mr. Orion, Mr. Blue Eyes himself. He always makes an appearance when I do labelling because he thinks the label is going to kill me, so he has to protect me. So sometimes I end up having to label things twice because he puts holes in my labels. But he's so darn cute. Now I always find that I've got to trim just a little bit off the bottom and top of the labels to fit onto the Distress ink pads, but that's okay. Maybe I'm just a little bit too fussy. And I label these on two sides as well, just because when I'm in a rush I don't like twisting and turning to try and find the colour that I'm after. I can just see it at a very quick glance. And you wouldn't know it, but I actually have in my very, very, very small craft room, I have 4 cat beds. Do you think he sits on any of them? No. He sits on my very small craft table. And there you can see what it looks like labelled. Very easy to see at a glance. And the coin sheets I just have clipped together with one of the, I'm not sure what they're called, the O-ring clips. They just undo so you can add more sheets to it. And I have all of my ink swatches in there, and I'm in the process of putting together a paper one as well with all of my paper ones. So there you go, that's how I store. So I've got one with oxides, and I've also got one with dye inks as well, so I can keep them all separate. And that's what they look like. So on the shelf you can actually see exactly what colours you have. there you go. Easy. I hope you got some benefit out of that. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to click subscribe and like. We'll see you later.